Thank you. Minister Bushati, may we have your remarks, please?
Thank you. I would like to echo on some of the points that have been presented also by the other panelists, but first I would like to say that it's always a pleasure to come back here, and Atlantic Council is, I consider, as a platform for discussion and also knowledge on Euro-Atlantic integration. It's a house where we can learn from each other and we can share our own experiences, and I would like to thank once again the organizers for keeping the door open to all of us. I've been listening quite carefully to all the panelists, and we were speaking about the region, and we like to speak about the region, but I'm afraid we are not yet a region. And I remember I've had more or less the same thesis when I appeared for the very first time here in this house. Because formally speaking, yes, situation in the Balkans it's much more stable than it used to be 10, 15, 20 years ago, of course. Formally speaking, all Western Balkan countries are aspiring to become EU members. You have 4 official candidates. You can play with Western Balkan countries in different baskets. You can even call Macedonia and Albania professional candidates, if you would like. When you see this process, when we started for the very first time, it looked a little bit distant. Then in '96, all countries in the region, including Albania, were offered an Europe agreement, like Bulgaria and Romania signed at the time with European Union. But then many things happened, internal, external, which affected also our region. And secondly, if we speak about Euro-Atlantic integration, you have members of NATO like Croatia, Montenegro, Albania. No one was mentioning Kosovo here. Kosovo is seeking desperately to have an institutionalized relationship with NATO. NATO is not able to offer or to be in a creative mood as EU has been with Kosovo. There has been decisions that have been taken within the framework of NATO. We as foreign ministers were not able to deliver on Kosovo for obvious reasons, because of non-recognizers. There are countries like Serbia that are sitting in two chairs. There are statements coming from different officials, from different offices in the West, but it's a fact. Nobody is able to prevent this. It's a reality. Then you've got Bosnia, and I'm afraid Rosemary was advocating more on Bosnia's path towards NATO than Bosnia's officials themselves, because in the last 2 years I have noticed that that representatives of governments from Bosnia, and here I'm referring Bosnia and not different and various structures, are not advocating anymore Bosnia joining NATO. So when it comes to these 2 elements, it is very difficult to speak about a true region. And this is also reflected in the way how our region is responding to different challenges. If you analyze, for instance, the level of alignment of foreign policy position to that of European Union, although 4 candidate countries do have a responsibility to align their foreign policy positions, with the exception of Albania and Montenegro, the other 2 don't do it. Gruevski was going backwards, and here I see my Macedonian friends. Every time I come here to Atlantic Council, he will have a question or he will disagree with me. I hope this will be the case again tonight. But this has been the situation in the Balkans, and the first challenge, in my opinion, is how to transform Western Balkans into a true region, politically, economically, and security-wise. Then there is also another element which I would like to touch upon. We should not fall on the trap of chapters, and here I agree with Hedvig, because we have a situation in the region where you don't always find a correlation between the chapters or the speed and the quality of the accession process. And you don't find this. The senator was mentioning the freedom of media, which is a very important topic in our region. Nobody is able to tell that a certain country, which appears to be on the accession table or appears to be a front runner, has transformed itself. We don't want to become Sweden. It's impossible for us to become Sweden. Maybe it's impossible for southern members of European Union to become Sweden. But it's important to show this trajectory. And sometimes I get maybe it's my wrong impression that EU is happy with certain leaders who are able to deliver, but fail to democratize the society and fail to give a direct contribution for the democratization process in the society. Therefore, it's very difficult to see this correlation between chapters being opened and democratization cycle. It is by no accident that you see more or less the same leaders, you see more or less the same political establishment in the region. And now we are entering also into this period of the network of tribunals and special prosecution units in all Western Balkan countries, taking inspirations maybe from the experiences of Romania and Croatia. And there is all these paranoid discussions in towns, because the common denominator of all these processes have to do with the reshuffling of the public scene in all our societies. And this is a painful exercise for our societies. In terms of challenges, no matter whether Montenegro has opened 28 chapters and Albania is about to sit in the accession table, we are more or less facing the same challenges. Internally, weak institutions and rule of law related challenges, corruption and organized crime, ethnic tensions. We have noticed last year in Mitrovica and Republika Srpska, economic disparity, and there is a widening gap, not between Western Balkans and Western Europe, but we are experiencing a widening gap between Western Balkans and the so-called new EU member states. There is also a difference in the way how different EU members are having access to the funds. I'll never forget the discussion I had with former President of Bulgaria. He was telling me that they are getting structural funds from European Union, and for them it's easier to go for infrastructure projects than Serbia, because Serbia has to rely only on the state budget money. So, which brings neighbors into a difficult situation. And it's sometimes, believe me, it's quite unpleasant to hear neighbors telling to us, you belong to Europe, you belong to Europe, you have a European destiny. We are neighbors, we know that. But how this is being translated into concrete terms, nobody is able to tell us. And then we're entering also into a quarreling, who is being mentioned the first, who is sitting the first, who is the front runner. Hedvig said that we like Berlin process. You know why? There is no quarrel on how to sit around the table when Angela Merkel is calling leaders of the Balkans, because of the German presence, because of the German leadership. But if we are calling each other, I'm afraid old habits die hard. We start quarreling about who is sitting here, whether we would use national symbols, and so on and so forth. And then we lack having a proper, a substantial discussion also with our partners. What is my proposal for the discussions? At least there would be 3 areas where I see the contribution of United States and the coordination between United States of America on one hand and European Union on the other hand, very important. I heard yesterday Secretary Tillerson was saying that Europe should write its next chapter in the history by itself. It's very nice. It's very nice, and I hope this is instigating more solidarity within European Union. But what we learned from the last 25 years is that American presence in our neighborhood, in Europe, is indispensable. Is indispensable for issues related to security reforms. Albania is a case in point. The whole transformation of intelligence service has been made through a close cooperation and partnership with the United States. This is not the case yet in many Western Balkan countries. It is not yet the case in Macedonia, where we have seen intelligence service playing politics, being part of political games publicly. It is not yet the case in Serbia, where you clearly see the influence of the so-called third actors in the intelligence service. It is not yet the case in Bosnia, and we need to complete this cycle because this is very important, no matter whether our countries will belong to European Union one day or not. Second, justice reforms and rule of law related reforms, or I can put it in a bigger framework, economic rule of law related reforms. Here, US needs to be a little bit more present, as it was the case with my country, with Albania, whereas European Union has the soft. And if we speak about chapters 23 and 24 and obligations emanating from those chapters, we have to have a clear view on what is going to be the situation in our societies in 2 years' time, in 4 years' time, in 5 years' time. Not just to have this formal screening where we are competing with each other, who is drafting the laws in a more speedy way. And the third element is the economic development. And this is my very last point. Last 2 years, we have been working closely with European Union as foreign ministers coming from candidate countries. Every 6 months, we are together with foreign ministers of European Union. And you know what were the topics we have discussed for the last 2 years and a half? Terrorism, migration. So it has been only crisis management mode. But we were quite successful. So Western Balkans was acting as a security provider for the whole architecture of Europe, security architecture of Europe. But how it comes, we are unable to work on a compelling narrative that would bridge the gap between Western Balkans and European Union. Rosemary was highlighting the fact that people are fleeing from the Balkans. This is because of the lack of a clear economic perspective. And we ought to be focused very much our efforts on this point too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bushati. I had more questions, but I want to make sure I open the floor to our audience for their own questions to you. So if you could just please, if anyone, yes, please, at the back of the room.
Hi there, Kurt Baziner from Democratization Policy Council. I want to follow on what you said, Mr. Minister Bushati, and I appreciate your candor. I mean, I sense that there's a credibility deficit in the region at the popular level quite a bit with the West, and it's differentiated. That, you know, the United States has credibility because of what it's done. The EU conceives of its own credibility because of what it is, but that is not necessarily translated to citizens in terms of a constituency. So I'd like you or any other panelists to talk about how you can see the West, liberal democracies, actually building a constituency at the popular level. Because we have lost credibility on that front because we haven't headlined it. The main angle of attack has been transactionalism. Look at all the good stuff you'll get if you join, rather than as a community of values. And I think that's been underplayed, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. Thank you.
Yes, please. Whoever wants to take it, we have 2 minutes for coffee break, I guess, so it has to be quick.
So maybe it was directed to him.
Minister Bushati.
Yeah.
In my humble view, it has to do with the quality of life. Nowadays, it's very difficult to speak about liberal democracy. I will never forget the experience of the last 2 years, where we had to pass a massive justice reform, which was accompanied with the constitutional amendments and the passing in the parliament of 7 framework laws, according to which all judges at various levels will go under re-evaluation procedure. And I was receiving, as a foreign minister, also colleagues coming from different EU member states. And I will never forget discussions I've had with them. Some of them were very much surprised and shocked by the fact that we had decided to work with Venice Commission, that we had decided to bring international experts into this process. For them, this was unacceptable. This was a breach of sovereignty. And we were always told that, you know, there is no anymore a set of Western norms as being accepted internationally speaking, because there could be also other actors which are offering you more comfort, caviar, champagne, a vertical approach on the way how to direct the interest or money coming from the state budget, and why you have to make all these efforts on behalf of whom. And I don't know whether I would be able to clearly convey my message. But nowadays, you don't go to your constituency and saying that, look, you know, I have passed these laws. We have opened all these chapters with the European Union, and now you have to trust us. Even in Germany, our counterparts are saying that politics is bread and butter. So what I'm able to offer to the citizens. And this is the point that Hedwig made also about the Berlin process. Yes, it helped us to have a different climate in our region. But if I'm asking the parliament about the numbers of projects that have been implemented, it's very difficult to show numbers of projects that have been implemented. So we have to be clear on that. I'm not worried at all by the fact that Serbs are thinking that Russia is the main donor in Serbia. Because I know also other Poles that are saying that Serbs would like to join European Union. And European Union is much more attractive nowadays outside the borders of European Union than inside the borders of European Union. And Balkans is a case in point. So my plea is how we can better synchronize our efforts in helping each other to bridge this gap, because 2 decades have been passed. We are elected only for 4 years in office, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult to deliver, and it's very difficult to speak to the young generation and saying that, look, by 2030, this connectivity map that we all agreed under the Berlin process will be implemented. So let's sacrifice, because by 2030 we'll see this in reality. So these are some elements which we need to take into consideration.